Hey guys, it's me again, Orcslayer. What if? So where we last left off, let's see, checking. Where we last left off on what if Issei had the Chaos Flame. Everybody knows now. The entire group knows, except for the girl with the perverted girl. Hatace, Miriyama, Motohama, and Matsuda, they all know about how the thing is. Sort of explained to them. I gave a bit of details in that last video, which was over a month ago. I think maybe even 2 months. I talked a little bit about Rias. Not too much from what I remember. But I'm just gonna skip straight ahead to when they start at Kuo Academy. I believe when we start in the anime, Issei is a first year and Rias is a third year, from what I remember. So at that point, Rias has somewhat gained a reputation. I believe Konako is even younger than Issei, so I may be wrong about what years they start in, but I don't believe I am. Yeah, I believe Issei is a second year. But for this go around, I'm gonna say we're gonna start where they're at first year level. This is essentially like the beginning stages of how, though Murayama, Motohama, and Katace have just really been introduced to the supernatural world. Issei has taken them on some missions, quote unquote, where they've had to track down a stray devil, but nothing too grand, really. Like, they haven't really had to come to blows with Rias and her peerage at this moment. Even now, it's still very, very... They don't really have to. And they've made sure to really steer clear of each other. Rias is even given specific orders to her group to just stay clear if you see people from that group. Or as she would describe them, the 3 people. But from what they have figured out now is that whoever he is, the one with the flames that can counter Rias' destruction, is actually expanded his ranks. They can tell that he's got 2 girls and 2 guys under his command, as well as the dog that they remember seeing. As for like the development with everybody's abilities, they all have gotten like, let's say, flames. What did I call it? I had a specific name for the gear that they were called. Chaos gear, if I remember. Something along those lines. Or chaos infused gear. Where it's like normal items can then be empowered or set into like a dormant state to where they can access their chaos weapons. Nothing too exciting. Issei has still been growing in his power, actually more and more. And I'll say at this point, because from what we know in the anime, is that Rias didn't really train herself with her destruction magic, from what we know. And that's a common thing I've seen around, like with other what ifs, is that she doesn't really train her magic, from what we see, like I said. So I'm going to say it's about the same case, but it isn't for the same reasons. A lot of times, for what I've seen, is that she's lazy and she doesn't really do it. For this case, I think I'm going to say she actually just immerses herself in human culture. So that way, like, she can forget about Riser and the whole devil underworld. She just sort of not neglects, but just sort of doesn't really cross her mind to. I'll say the people who keep up their training would be Konako and Kiba, since their whole thing is physical combat, and Kiba's whole thing is just he summons swords right away, and Konako never used her Neko powers, Nekomata, I think that's what she's called, yes, her Nekomata powers or Senjutsu, till Issei helped her overcome like some of her fears and the likes. Akuno never accepted her fallen angel side, so she never accesses the full power of her lightning. I'll say she still studies magic and stuff and tries to learn how to be better at it, but a lot of them are more focused on the human parts of themselves. The human, quote unquote. They're human personas. That's really what they worry about. Like I said, they still train, but not to the same degree that Issei and his group does. So I'll say at this point, Issei and his group have actually surpassed Rias and her group. Issei can take on like Rias and Akano, I'll say, at the same time. It will be a bit of a fight for him, but he can still pull through. As just for comparison, Motohama and Matsuda, each of them could hold their ground with Kiba. But I'll say thanks to Kiba's like ability to create the multiple different types of swords, he's able to overwhelm them eventually just through versatility. Better swordsman goes to Kiba and versatility, but they, I would say, have better power. And I would say durability too. That goes to Matsuda and Motohama. Now, Kitase and Murayama... Yes. Kitase and Murayama are actually, I'll say, they do the, I believe it was Kendo? Yes, they're part of the Kendo club. And I'll say, thanks to their knowledge of what's going down behind the scenes, they've actually thrown themselves even more into it. So they're trying to get higher and higher levels of skill. So I'll say they're roughly even with Kiba on sword level. Like when it comes to utilizing, let's just say, a standard sword. As for... Sorry about that if you heard that. I had an alarm go off. As for power-wise, I would say Kiba is stronger than them by a small margin thanks to his devil, like, you know, his devil abilities. That same thing goes for Kiba and Matsuda, but the reason why they sort of outpace him is because I'll say Issei's chaos magic sort of helps boost their power level. Same thing with Kitase and Murayama, but the guys have focused a lot more on physical strength and training instead of Murayama and Kitase focusing on skill, precision, and the like. So that would that would help them. I was saying something else. And as for Dog, because I never gave him a name, I'm just calling him Dog. That's what Issei calls him. To sort of even out with Konako, it's surpassed Konako by a pretty large margin. The main reason why is because it utilizes its full powers, and thanks to being completely transformed by the Chaos Flame, it sort of had, like in the earlier years when Issei had it, it turned into a Chaos Demon, quote unquote, I'll say. Like a very low level Chaos Demon. If you were going to compare it, I would say it'd be along the lines of the Taurus Demon from Dark Souls 1. Physically, it's like that powerful. It doesn't utilize weapons, but it does have some pyromancy abilities. Like, it can summon Iron Skin, as well as the fact it does have Fireball. It doesn't have anything like Firestorm or anything. It does have Fireball, and I would say Poison Mist. Because for some reason, that's also a pyromancy spell. But I'll give credit where credit is due. That's mainly because that's also from like a swampy area, which is said some pyromancers knew from. As for Issei's mother, she doesn't really go on missions or quests anymore, I'll say. But what she does do is she still keeps her knowledge. Because her whole deal is that she wasn't ever physically strong, but her knowledge of pyromancy and mastery of it is what really gives her power. Now, outright, her flames will never win against Issei's. That's just how it works. He is the source of the Chaos Flame. But she will, even though, like, say, Dog is a Chaos Demon, she can take over his flames with the right precision and knowing how to guide them. I've digressed, but to finish all up, they all have like a form of armor they can have for the Chaos. Their Chaos armor, as I call it. A lot of it's dependent on the person. For instance, like Kitase and Mariyama's, their stuff looks a lot like a samurai's. Or a lot like their kendo uniforms, but it looks like it's made out of smoldering metal and stuff like that. As for Matsuda and Motohama, they both got armor that look more knightly, I would say. Like, nothing too grand. I would even say that, I believe it's Motohama is the one with glasses, and Matsuda is the one without glasses. Yes, Matsuda. Apologies for that. Motohama is the one with glasses. Matsuda is the one with a shaved head. Motohama is... I'd say he actually does have some semblance of pyromancy control, thanks to the teachings of Issei's mom. Matsuda is the more physical one of the two. He's more like a brawler, really. So what he does is he has what I would call like two hammers, like two like maces, essentially, that he uses. And he sort of deals it that way. He's sort of like the rook of the group if you wanted to use the devil's way of how they use things. Motohama is more like a hybrid class, really, between a bishop, really, and I would say a pawn, really, because that's how he fights mainly. He's a little bit physical, but he does a bit more magic stuff. While Kitase and Mariyama are obviously knights. And, of course, you got Issei the king. And I would say Dog is more like a rook. Oh, well, he's more like a queen, actually. Since he has really all-around abilities when it comes to it. He's very fast, very strong, and he has quite a bit of magic. Like I said, sorry I digress. I sort of just had to explain how they sort of evolved when it comes to this. Since there's going to be a bit of a time skip from when Kitase Mariyama and all of them learn about this to when Issei and them are now at not UA, different what if, to where they're at Kuo Academy. As it's going to transpire, when they first all are starting off at first years, they sort of get the hang of the ropes. Since Issei and them, Issei, Motohama, and Matsuda, never really developed the perverted trio thing, sort of. They're never really going to develop that. Sure, they're going to have it, but thanks to Kitase and Mariyama being always around, they know that if they ever expressed anything like that, they would kill them. Same thing with Issei's mom. Issei's mom got onto Issei quite a lot after she found that certain book in Issei's room. So the girls have always been quite diligent in making sure they don't develop bad habits. And they got the kendo stick, so they know how to do it. So the guys are actually going to have a better reputation in school. And in fact, they're going to get a different reputation of, like the group in general is going to be known as, like, that friend group that's known each other for a long time. But each of them, since Kitase and Mariyama, are actually going to go on to join the Kendo Club at Kuo. And eventually they'll actually become captains very quickly. So the two of those three are known as the captains. the the kendo club, while the guys actually did have hobbies before. Like, I believe Matsuda was actually like an amateur athlete. And Modahama, nope. Matsuda, I think, was an amateur athlete, then joined the photography club, but then he, like, for, well, let's say, perverted reasons. Modahama, I think, was a very good academic, from what I remember. And so they actually stick to their original hobbies. Like, I'll say Matsuda continues on with the sports thing. Like, he joins a couple of the teams. He doesn't really participate in any games or nothing, like official games, but he's always there willing to train with them and, like, help them out. Modahama is still actually uses, like, since he's a lot smarter than the rest of the group, really, he actually uses that as a way to, like, help people and tutor them for money. Matsuda really does the same thing, like offering to help people train and stuff before, like, up and coming games, and he actually, again, charges them for it. Not a lot, just like spare change and the like. While Issei is generally the one that's left by himself. But he is still, like, a very kind individual that actually generally helps a lot of people around the school. Like, if he sees people carrying boxes, he offers his hand to help them. He's more willing to actually volunteer to do classwork. So they each, like, get their own personas. Like, Matsuda is known as the trainer, or the Matsuda, the great trainer. Modahama, the tutorer. Koteis and Murayama have the captain, the kendo captains. And then Issei is really just known as, since, like, for some reason they have for, like, Rias and I believe it was Akano, the great ladies of Kuo, or the flowers of Kuo, something, the princesses, flowers, something like that. While you had, like, Kiba, you had the prince of Kuo, and then I believe even Konako had one, which was the mascot. Issei really just gets the kind Issei, or the kind, what was it? Trying to figure out how to word this. He's what's referred to as the helping hand, that he's always really there for when people really need him. Sure, he can be a bit standoffish at sometimes, but he really does always offer his help. They've also been known, like, Kuo Academy did get bullies. Like, in the early years when it switched to co-ed, there were some people who got, like, the tendency to boil, boy and girl. Well, Koteis and Murayama generally handled the girls. Issei was known to be the one to confront the guys. And it's actually, like, thanks to having to deal with, he actually has a few run-ins with Sona Citri and Tsubaki. I believe that's her names. Sona is, well, we know, is also a devil along with Tsubaki. And it's actually known that Sona tried to deal with them in her own way, but she never really could, because she's a second year at this point, so she has a limited set of power, really. I'll say in this time, like, she's still feeling out how to deal with certain situations, since she was elected as a second year, and so she's kind of new to it. This sort of comes down to the fact to... sorry? It sort of comes down to the fact that they just hear this massive fight has broken out behind the school, and that there's, like, 5 people fighting. Well, when they get back there, they see Issei pretty much throw someone over his shoulder, as he then sort of ducks down and then uppercuts somebody into their body, sending them back quite a bit. And when they come to, they see Issei has just taken down 4 of the biggest bullies in the school. And then Katase and Murayama, they can see Katase and Murayama dealing with the girlfriends of these guys. And these guys were just like a bunch of like 2-bit thugs, really. To push people around, take lunch money, the standard sort of stuff. Katase and Murayama are the ones that are left to deal with the girls, because issei is just like, they know how to do it better. They can use words. I can't. I know my fist. And then so he punches the guys, really. As I'll say that issei does know Sona and Tsubaki are devils. Thanks to the Chaos Flame and the ability, like, since it had to wage war on devils and angels, it actually knows the devil and angel, like, powers very well. It can sort of sense them already. It's very helpful, especially with, like, if there's a time where issei can't help with a stray devil, the powers and stuff that the Chaos Gear does have actually does help seek out devils and let them be, like, known if there's a devil around. Stray or not, for that matter. How they can tell is that they can sort of feel like, as this Chaos Gear sort of connects to their soul, really, they can sort of feel how it burns hotter in the presence of a devil. And I say hotter because it sort of tries to burn away the devil's darkness. As for angels, they don't know quite what it does for angels. They actually don't know for a fact that it does work against angels. They'll just have to see in the coming years. But that's how issei and them get introduced to Sona. Sona does take an interest in issei and Katase and Murayama, but she also knows that Rias needs some peerage members too. So they're just sort of on her radar at this point. Sorry. As for the rest of this time, they just sort of take the time to build up a reputation by the time they get to the second year of Kuo Academy. So, like I said, Matsuda's known as the trainer, Motohama's known as the tutor, Katase and Murayama, Kendo captains, and Issei's known as the helping hand. So, as it comes down to it, let's say we're going to start on the day that we see issei. Konako's joined this year as well, so there's all that sort of stuff. Issei and them are all chatting, you go on how it really typically went for the day. As you get where issei and them are all waiting, as Issei, Motohama, and Matsuda are actually waiting for Katase and Murayama to get done with kendo practice. I'll actually go so far as to say they're actually inside, like, watching them actually practice, as sometimes you like issei or something will step in to, like, get a feel for the sword, like, handling the sword again. Because sometimes, like I said, they don't really use them all that much. The only one who really uses one, I believe it was Motohama, but not really, since he was the first one to find out about the whole supernatural world. Sorry, my leg itches, scratching it. But he's really taken a step back and more has learned how to use pyromancies better. As it's go on, I digress, sorry. Issei is just sort of watching him and just realizes that he is very happy that he has these people to watch his back. That he has been able to make friends and maintain these friendships even after everything that's happened. He still keeps an eye on Rias and them as he questions to himself, why exactly are they here? Like, they say this is Devil's territory, but he thinks to himself, who decided that? Like, they can't really divvy up the world because it belongs to humanity as he sees it. That, to him, the devils, angels, heck, even the fallen angels are all pretty freaking arrogant when they try to decide that the world that was created doesn't belong, that as they would call it, doesn't belong to humans. Because to him, they have hell and all that sort of place to take over. They don't really have a right to lay claim to anything on Earth to him. Like, he doesn't see it like that. So in his mind, he really just doesn't care for the devil system as it is. He even hates... Though he leads his, like, friends, he acknowledges the fact that he only leads them because they choose to follow him. He doesn't, like... And though he has a chaos flame and gives them gear and stuff, he doesn't think... Like, he views them as equals, really. Sure, he thinks, like, they get the gear from him, but he... And they, like, sort of follow his lead. But he wouldn't really, like, sort of hold that power over any of them. Because I'll say this, the Chaos Flame sort of endowed him with some principles, such as the idea of freedom. That nobody is really beholden to another, as long as they really just don't try to screw each other over, really. That's sort of how he views it, and the Chaos Flame sort of is the reason why he views it that way. Because it did affect his personality. Now, the Chaos Gear does do the same thing a little bit, a lot less than it does the actual Flame. For Katase and Murayama and all them, they're just more or less like, yeah, do what you want, we don't really care. Is sort of how they view things. But I digress, I'm sorry. Now, we're going to skip ahead and go to the point where they all leave and are going actually home for the day. That's when they end up running into Yuma Amano, or as we know her, Rainier. As they are all sort of like stopped by her, she actually tries to ask out issei. Issei sort of is confused, but he sort of accepts the asking out bit. The others are confused as to why he's doing it, but he can't really give a solid answer. He's just like, I don't know, what do you want from me? It's just like, Chasing me around are like, we want a damn answer is what we want. As they sort of like start pressuring him, tell them why he said yes, and as he's just getting more nervous, he sort of looks at Motohama and Matsuda. He's like, give me some help here, guys, I need help. As Motohama and Matsuda just look away and they're like, this ain't our problem. You dug this hole yourself, we ain't dealing with it. As then Murayama and Kitase look at the two of them, like, and what are you two doing? He's like, what? It's just like, as I'll say, they sort of gawked at Murayama, because she was, from what I remember, decently attractive in her non-fallen angel form. So it did gawk a bit. As they sort of start railing on them, Yuma sort of like brings Issei aside and sort of talks with him about maybe going on a date this Sunday. It's Sunday. Issei accepts it, and I'll say even at this point that since Rias is very desperate for people at this point, thanks to the amount of fighting they do and how much powerful they become, they actually do have some form of energy that the devils can pick up. Issei tries his best to help them mask it, but there's only so much he can do. Because from what I don't think it's ever explained, but it's sort of explained that people with sacred gears typically give off an aura or something like that can be sensed. That really is how I know about it. Like, that's how I remember it being explained. I digress. As you get to the point where Koneko actually reports back, as she goes to explain to Rias exactly what just transpired, and says that a fallen angel is trying to get at Issei. She's asked him on a date, and that she doesn't really know the purpose. Rias is very worried about this because, as like I said, she views this place as her territory. So why the heck is there a fallen angel here, and why is she targeting this specific student? So she does just that. She has her Konako or her like little familiar sort of travel out and try to find Issei when the time comes for it. As the day finally comes to where Issei is going on the date, his mother has actually sat him down, talked to him about how you take a woman out on a date. And it sort of goes like this: she's like, "All right, you're going on a date, right?" He's like, "Yeah." It's just like, "All right, sit down. The father would typically be here, would have done this, but you got me, so too bad." As Issei's just like, "Oh God, please don't tell me." She's like, "So, son." And it's just like, Mom, please stop. It's just like, no, come on. I'm gonna tell you how you're gonna woo this girl. As Issei's just like, I don't even know what I did to get her interested. She's like, well, yeah. Most guys don't typically know, because you're idiots, really. As Issei goes to raise up his finger to suggest otherwise, then he just takes a moment and thinks about it. He's just like, no, she's fucking right. We are sometimes dumb, I'm not gonna lie. It's just like, even though with this infinite amount of power, apparently, as he sort of looks at the Chaos Flame, it's just like, you don't help me talk to girls. As Issei doesn't know how, but he can just sort of feel like the Chaos Flame just shrugs its shoulders. Like, what do you want me to do? I can only do so much. As Issei is listening to his mom, as she talks about how one of the first times his dad ever took her on a date, and he's just like, oh my God. As this is going to be after, from the last flashback we had, Issei... Sorry. The last flashback we had was Issei's mom and his dad meeting, and how his dad saved her mom from a bunch of exorcists. Since she used to be like I didn't know she wasn't like Aja, but she knew like pyromancies and stuff, and that sort of drew the attention of the church and how they want to get rid of her. So when it came down to it, after like a couple of years of traveling together, the two of them sort of got really close, and eventually Issei's dad got the courage to ask her on a date, and so they went on it. She goes on to explain to Issei, now listen, you're going to hold the doors open for this girl, alright? So, okay, yeah, I know that. You're going to speak properly, be nice, and be cordial. You're going to pay for things on this date. Do you understand? But Mom, like, what? Why? She's the one who asked. She's like, sort of smacks him upside the head, and she's like, because it's the gentleman thing to do. As he's just like, Dad, you set a very high standard when you took Mom. She's like, what was that? He's like, nothing. As he's about getting ready to go, it's like, look, as she sort of like takes a second to like straighten out his clothes a little bit, she's like, yep, you'll knock him dead on it. And she sort of pats him on the shoulder. He's like, you think Dad would be proud of this moment? She's like, honey, I know he would be. He'd probably be jumping off the walls if that was the case. He's just like, thanks, Mom, for saying that. She's like, no problem. As he's about to walk out, now go knock him dead. As she sort of smacks him on the back, she's like, alright, as he goes off to go meet Yuma. And that's where I'm just going to say I'm going to end this one off at. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Hope you guys continue to enjoy this. If you got any feedback or anything for the series and some interesting aspects you would want to know about, just send me a message. Or just leave a comment. And hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a nice day, nice night, nice life.